إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. So this morning I want to talk to the men about an interesting situation that happened between two of the Prophet ﷺ's companions. And through this incident, we can learn a lot about how men should interact with one another, how they should engage one another, especially as it relates to something as delicate as the way that we deal with our families. This, inshallah ta'ala, will help imams, during their counseling sessions and addressing other men about the way that they treat their families. It's a very delicate situation, and it's not something that we should just approach without looking at or considering the way that the Prophet ﷺ dealt with the men in his community. When you look at the Prophet ﷺ's interaction with the men in his community, we can learn a lot from that. And I think a lot of the bickering, a lot of the in-house fragmentation and separation between the men in the community has a lot to do with the way that we engage one another, the way that we talk to one another. And, we have to understand that everybody's temperament is different. And we have to have respect generally for the way that we communicate to men. So this hadith is on the authority of Abu Juhayfa. قال آخى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بين سلمان وأبي الدرداء جزاك الله خير. Abu Juhayfa, he said that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم made a special pact of brotherhood between Salman al-Farisi and Abu al-Darda. I'm sure some of you have probably heard this hadith before. Nonetheless, we're going to comb through it and gather as much as we can from it. Why did the Prophet ﷺ make a special pact of brotherhood between Salman al-Farisi and Abu al-Darda? Salman, he converted to Islam from Persia. We're all familiar with his story, that he went through so many different trials and tribulations to make his way to Medina to eventually convert to Islam. The hadith that mentions where the Prophet ﷺ said that Salman minni ahlul bayt. Hadith is in some regard da'if. However, we do know that the Prophet ﷺ did say things like that. A hadith can be da'if, can be weak, mainly due to the chain of transmission, which is called the isnad. The chain of transmission, either there's a rawi, there's a narrator in the chain that is mutakallim fi. He is someone that has been, criticized by the scholars of hadith, or he could have a bad memory. Depending on what the criticism was about him will determine the grade of the hadith. If he was known to be a liar, then the hadith will be da'if, la yanjabr. It will be weak and it can't be strengthened. That particular chain can't be strengthened if he's known as being a liar. If he had a weak memory, then the hadith is da'if, lakin yanjabr. It is weak, but it can be strengthened if there's another chain of transmission that is just as strong or stronger, and you put those two together, it increases the likelihood that the Prophet ﷺ actually did say that. All right? Nonetheless, the Prophet ﷺ was reported that he said that Salman is a part of my family. And he did that because he wanted to make Salman feel welcome, considering that he was not an Arab. He wanted to make him feel welcome. And he did that with a lot of the Sahaba that came from different places that were not necessarily from either Quraysh or were not Arabs in general. However, when the Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina, he realized that he had a dilemma, and that was that the only way that he could begin working on the internal infrastructure of the community is that there had to be cooperation between feuding tribes. You had the people from Medina, Al-Ansar, that were broken into two groups, which was the Aus, Khazraj. And then you had the Muhajirun, those who migrated from Mecca to Medina, who were also not monolithic. They were different tribes, Bani Khuzaymah, Bani Fulan. They were different tribes, but they all had the same goal. So they kind of worked with one another within that goal. But the Prophet ﷺ realized that the people from Mecca and the people from Medina, they came from two totally different worlds, especially as it relates to commerce, business. Muhajirin, they left everything, their businesses, they left everything. This is what started the battle of Badr. I'm trying to connect all of the dots for you before we go into the hadith. All right? A lot of times we read the biography of the Sahaba, we read, the battles, and it's just all bits and pieces, pixels of information just all over the place. Our job as we mature with the information that we have is to connect all of those dots so that we have a clear picture of what actually happened. And it gives us a more profound respect for the history of Islam, the early generation Muslims, as well as it allows us to feel like we're more a part of it because we understand it. But the whole battle of Badr started not because the Prophet ﷺ wanted to go to war, but as the caravan was coming back from Damascus going to Mecca, the Prophet ﷺ told some of the Sahaba, it wouldn't be a bad idea for you to go seize the caravan and go get your property. That property is yours. They took that from you. That's the property that you left in Mecca when you migrated to Medina. Some Sahaba left their houses, left their businesses, left everything. And Quraysh just went in and took everything. And then they traveled back and forth from Mecca to Damascus, رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Quraysh. That rihla, that journey in the winter and in the summer, was the business traveling that they used to travel for business up to Damascus. So on the way back, the Prophet ﷺ instructed some of the Sahaba, it wouldn't be a bad idea to go seize the caravan and go get your stuff. It's yours. And that is what started the battle. So when the Sahaba migrated to Medina, they didn't have much. And they didn't know the turf, they didn't know the territory. So the Prophet ﷺ figured that I would pair some of the Muhajirin with the Ansar so they could teach them how to survive, how to live. Teach them how to live. Similar to what we do for Muslims that come from other countries and migrate here. You come here, you learn the land, you learn the territory. And then when others migrate from Pakistan, from Yemen, from other places, here you teach them how to earn their living. You teach them business. This is your turf. And this is exactly what the Prophet ﷺ did between the Muhajirin and Ansar. He started pairing them up. You and you are brothers. You and you're brothers. You and you're brothers. He paired Abdurrahman ibn Auf, who was one of the wealthiest men in Mecca. He paired him with Sa'd ibn Rabi'a, who was one of the wealthiest men from the Ansar. And it was strategic. You're not going to pair somebody who was wealthy with someone who was dirt poor, right? They're two different mindsets. They're going to clash because they come from two different tiers of society, and therefore they have two different mindsets. Abdurrahman, anybody who managed to become a wealthy businessman, is in essence a hustler. He knows how to get money. No matter what environment you put him in, he'll make his way, he'll find his way. So Abdurrahman ibn Auf left everything. And he came to Medina, and the Prophet ﷺ paired Abdurrahman with Sa'd ibn Rabi'a, one of the wealthiest men in Medina. And when he made this pairing, Sa'd said to Abdurrahman, he said, Inni unasifuka nisfa mali. He said, I'll give you half of my wealth. Just based upon the pact of brotherhood that the Prophet made between us. They were going to honor that. He said, I will give you half of what I own. Half of my wealth is yours. He said, and I have multiple wives. He said, choose which one is the prettiest to you. I'll divorce her. And when she finishes her iddah period, you can marry her. That's going way too far, But it just shows you the honor. They wanted to honor the Prophet ﷺ by way of this pact of brotherhood. And Abdurrahman ibn Auf, he said to Sa'd, He said, Barakallahu laka fi malika wa ahlika, dullani ala suq, ana ashtaghl bi nafsi. He said, may Allah bless you in your wealth and in your wife. I don't want your money, and I don't want one of your wives. Show me where the marketplace is. I can get my own money. I'm a hustler. Show me where the marketplace is. I can make my own. I don't need that. And of course, lo and behold, Abdurrahman, over some time, he becomes one of the wealthiest men in Medina. That's a man that has ambition. You understand? It doesn't matter. Sometimes we get into business deals with people. They cut our throats, they steal our money, whatever the case may be. Knock me down 50 times, I'm going to get back up 51 times. That's what a hustler does. You can take it from me, but you can't take it out of me. Travel from Mecca all the way to Medina. I don't want your money. Just show me where the marketplace is. Let me go figure the game out, and I'll be right back exactly where I was. And that's exactly what he did. That's a man who has ambition. Not accepting any handouts from anybody. Just show me the game and I'll figure it out myself. And this is important, especially as I'm streaming this live for, brothers that come home from prison and integrate back into the Muslim community. And they integrate back into the Muslim community with a sense of entitlement. That I'm Muslim, I've arrived now, you're supposed to marry me to one of the sisters in the community, and somebody is supposed to give me a job in here. I went to the Masjid and nobody offered me a job. It's no handouts. If you're a man, then you find your way. I don't need you to give me anything. Just show me the hustle. Show me what my opportunities are, and I'll make my own way. That's what a real man does. It's no entitlement. We come home, brothers come home from prison and come to the masjid and just automatically assume that someone is supposed to marry you to one of the sisters in the masjid. It doesn't work like that. What have you done? Nobody even knows who you are. You haven't established a reputation. You don't have a job. And our sisters, unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't know the way that they are painted in the prison system, but they are not charity cases. These are our future mothers, our daughters in the community, and we don't just give them away freely simply because you show up at the masjid door, home from prison, and you're ready to get married. It doesn't work like that. That may not be a struggle here, but better believe it's a struggle in many of the masajid. This mentality of entitlement. So the Prophet ﷺ, he made also a pact of brotherhood between Salman al-Farisi and Abu Darda. So one day, Salman al-Farisi goes to visit Abu Darda. And Abu Darda is married to a woman by the name of Darda. Her real name is Khayra, but she's known as Darda. Salman goes to visit Abu Darda, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. فَرَأَى Darda مُتَبَذِّلًا. And he notices Darda مُتَبَذِّلًا, dressed in very shabby clothes. This was before the ayat of hijab. So the women weren't actually wearing hijab. He sees her come to the door dressed in shabby clothing, and he notices something is wrong with this picture. This is a man who was, overprotective of the family of another man. You come in and you notice little signs. Some of us are just completely oblivious. We see a woman, one day she has on, just a hijab, and then the next day she's wearing niqab, and we just think, oh, she just decided to put on niqab today. We don't really think deeper than that maybe she's trying to hide a scar on her face. We don't think deeper than that. He comes to his home and he sees his wife come to the door dressed in an unusual way. That's a red flag. Someone that you are close with, as a man, you're close with, and you go to your brother's house and you notice something different. There's a red flag. And so he asks her, Ma sha'nuki? What's wrong with you? Why are you dressed like this? And she says to Salman, Akhuka Abu Darda, laysa lahu haja fi dunya. She said, your brother, Abu Darda, he has no care or concern for the life of this world. In another narration, it mentions that she said, Akhuka Abu Darda, laysa lahu haja fi nisa. Your brother Abu Darda, he has no concern for women. As the scholars say, al-labib yakfihi al-ishara, the intelligent person is just sufficient for you to indicate. They get it. She didn't have to spell it out for him. Here's a woman who's going through something, but she's still trying to protect the honor of her husband. I don't want to dog him out. I don't want to disrespect him in front of another man. A woman should never do that. No matter what you're going through, you should always maintain the honor of your husband. Obviously, I'm not talking about something extreme like domestic violence or something like that. I'm talking about minor battles, minor struggles, minor confrontation, conflicts that usually go on between husband and wife. And sometimes that if it's not checked, it can escalate. It still does not, create a situation where a woman should dishonor her husband in front of another man. Because in that case, you are giving this man an indication that you really don't want to be married to him. When in fact, you really do. You just want the problem to be solved. So if a woman is going to go to an imam and complain about her husband, the first thing she should lead with is, I love my husband. Let me be clear with you. I need some advice about my marital situation, but I don't want to give you the indication that I don't want to be married to my husband. I don't want you to misunderstand me. I love my husband. However, this is the issue that we're dealing with. So that leaves no room for shaitan to creep into the imam's mind, to creep into whoever, the counselor is at that time. You guys follow me? It's very important that, shaitan, flows through Adam, through the child of Adam like blood. So we have to be cautious about the language that we use. So she used, in a very indirect way of basically saying to Salman, your brother, Abu Darda, he's neglecting me. He's not giving me my rights. He's neglecting me. In another narration it mentioned, she said, Yaqumul layl wa yasumun nahar. He's fasting all day and he's praying all night. Not that he's at the bar, not that he spends time away from home for countless hours. I never see him. Although that falls into the same category, it's still neglect. But he was doing something a little bit unusual. He was engaging in acts of worship, but it's still neglect. As some men may think that because I'm doing something religious, I'm justified. And it's not justification, because it still falls under the category of neglect, spousal neglect. Your wife has rights over you, whether you like it or not. And it's important that, we make sure that we understand our role as husbands, as men. You can't spend hours away from home, come home, sleep for hours, and the rest of the time that you're up, you're yelling, you're complaining, and that's the extent of your relationship at home. La wallahi. That's not the extent of your relationship with your household. She said, your brother Abu Darda, laysa lahu haja fi nisa. He has no care or concern for women. That's why I'm dressed like this. You want to see if your wife is actually happy? Look at how she engages herself. Look at how she feels about herself. People will usually feel about themselves based upon the validation that they get from the people that they love the most. Going back to the hadith of Zahir, when the Prophet ﷺ saw Zahir, who was a slave, whose freedom was eventually purchased. However, he still had to deal with the social marginalization of being a man from Abyssinia who used to be a slave in a society where many felt like he didn't belong. The Prophet ﷺ saw Zahir in the marketplace, walked behind him and grabbed him. Zahir saying, who's this? Get off of me. And then when he realizes that it's the Prophet ﷺ, he relaxes. And the Prophet ﷺ says jokingly, "Man yashtari hadha al-abd?" Who will buy this slave? And Zahir turns to the Prophet ﷺ. He said, "Ya Rasulullah, la tajiduni kasidan, la yashtarini ahad." He said, "O Messenger of Allah, if you're referring to me, I'm worthless goods. Nobody would buy me." That comment that Zahir made about himself was a reflection of the way society saw him. He's worthless, he's nothing, he's just a slave. Black slave who earned his freedom, he converted to Islam, but he's still a slave. Still marginalized, even within the Islamic community. So his comment about himself was a reflection of the way that people saw him. And that's usually the way that people, and that's simply because we don't understand that validation is not from the outside, validation is from the inside. But we grow up in a society, we grow up in a world that teaches us that you are someone because you have money. You are someone because you're beautiful. And then of course the standards of beauty are set by, a different standard. Society sets the standards of beauty. You are somebody because you're smart. You get straight A's. You are somebody because you have a college degree. You are somebody because you have a PhD. We do it even in the Muslim community. People are not important because they're just Muslim and they have a great story to tell. People are someone because, Ibtihaj Muhammad, she made it to the Olympics. So now she's going to conferences around the Muslim world. She's important now. But she was important before she became Ibtihaj Muhammad from the Olympics. The gold medalist. The boxer who, is invited to all of these great Islamic conferences because now he's the world champ. But he was somebody before he became the world champ. Why is it in the Muslim community people are only important when they arrive at this place of, social greatness? We're great the moment we say, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. That alone makes you great. That was enough for the Prophet ﷺ to consider someone great, one of his companions. Some of the chiefs of Quraysh, they went to the Prophet ﷺ and they said, if you want us to follow you, you got to get these slaves from around you. Bilal, Miqdad ibn Aswad, Fulan, you got to get these people around you. If you want us to follow you, there's no way we will stand side by side with these people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the ayah in Surah Al-An'am. لا تطرد الذين يدعون ربهم بالغداة وعشي يريدون وجهه. Do not chase them away, those who seek the face, desiring the countenance, the face of your Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala day and night. ما عليك من حسابهم من شيء. You have nothing to do with their account, they have nothing to do with your account. فَتَطْرُدَهُمْ, so that you chase them away. And if you did so, فَتَكُونَ مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ, you will be oppressive if you do that. This is Allah admonishing the Prophet ﷺ, don't do that. Your job is not to placate the feelings of the elite. Your job is to give voice to the voiceless. That's your job. When Herakl was having a conversation with Ja'far, Abu Sufyan, and he asked him, who follows this man Muhammad? Ashraf al-nas yattabi'uhum am du'afa'uhum? Do the ashraf, do the elite from society follow Muhammad? Or is it the du'afa? Or is it the weak and the oppressed? Abu Sufyan said, ad-du'afa, the weak and the oppressed. And what did Herakl say? What did he say? Hum atba' ar-rusul. They are always the followers of the prophets and messengers. Always. The weak, the oppressed, the marginalized, they are always the followers of the prophets and messengers. Always. So the point that I'm making is that he noticed that she was dressed in raggedy clothing. He noticed that something was wrong, and she didn't have to spell it out for him, because spelling it out would be probing deeper into the issue. And Salman didn't ask. He didn't say, well, what do you actually mean? What do you mean here? What is he doing? This is considered probing and digging deeper into issues that now, once that information comes to you, how do you engage your brother now? There's certain things that you shouldn't want to know. I don't need to know all of that. Just give me a general idea of what's happening, and then let me advise the brother the best way I know how. I don't need the details, because once you give me details, it makes it very difficult for me now to face him, because now you've shared some things with me that is opposite of what I knew of him. Information is dangerous. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, لا تسألوا عن أشياء إن تبد لكم تسؤكم. Don't ask about things that when it is clarified for you, when it is spelled out for you, it's going to cause you a problem. Don't ask. I don't need details. Just tell me generally what's wrong, and then I'll figure it out for myself without the details. Because once those details come to you, it makes it very difficult for you to engage him now, because now she's shared some things with you about him, you know, that makes you look at him a little differently. And some of us, we thrive on that type of deep information. And it's almost akin to spying. It's called tajassus. It's two types of spying that are mentioned in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah Al-Hujurat, La tajassasu, and don't spy on one another, and that's by looking. Tajassus is by looking, waiting to see, oh, he's going in there. Oh, she's doing this. Oh, look at him. He's talking to that brother. Oh, he's talking to that's spying by looking. And then what Prophet Yaqub said to his sons when they were going to ask about Yusuf, اذهبوا فتحسسوا من يوسف وأخيه. Go and do what is called tahassus. Tahassus is to spy by asking questions. Hey, what did he do? Where was he going? What did he say? This is another form of spying, but it's by asking questions to dig deeper into the issue. And this is also a form of spying. And so we want to be careful that we don't ever do that to another man, because then, you know, what happens is a lot of times we don't have, you know, the personal fortitude to confront the man, so then we just start acting funny towards him. The salams are different. The kalam is different. And you as a man, you're like, something wrong, brother? Like, I notice you're engaging me a little differently. No, everything is cool. And everything is not cool. You got some information about me that made you interact with me differently. And because of that, you're not able to, you know, tell me what it is and confront me face to face as a man. So we do the cowardly thing, and the salam is different, the kalam is different. I don't really talk to you like that anymore. And I'm trying to figure out, like, well, what's wrong? What did I do wrong to you? But you won't say anything. That's a coward. Why not just confront the person? You were bold enough to listen, to gossip and backbite and get the information that you needed to get about the person, and now you refuse to confront him. That's not what men do. If you were bold enough to say, well, what did he say? Or what did he do? Oh, really? And you're asking all of these detailed questions. So what are you going to do with the information now that it's brought to your attention? Are you going to confront him? Are you going to say something to him about it? No, you're not. You're just going to slowly but surely start turning away from him. That's not from Islam. That's not the behavior of the Prophet ﷺ. Even if he knew something about someone, he still would not allow that to stop him from engaging them in the way that he's supposed to. The hadith where the man came to his house and he said, Bitsa akhu ashira. How much of a disgrace is this man to his tribe, to his family? And Aisha heard him say that. And then when the man came in, the Prophet ﷺ smiled and he engaged him, he laughed with him. And Aisha sitting there looking like, how are you engaging him like this? And I just heard you say what you said about him. And then when the man left, Aisha asked the Prophet ﷺ, she said, oh, Messenger of Allah, how is it that you could say what you said about him, and then when he comes in, you engages him politely like nothing is wrong? And the Prophet ﷺ said to Aisha, Ya Aisha, mata ahibtani fahashan. When have you ever known me to be disrespectful? Just because I feel like that about someone doesn't mean that I have to treat them as such. It's called diplomacy. That although, and it's also called respect, because respect is how you treat someone regardless of how you feel about them. And if we're not able to do that, we're not able to maintain how I feel about you, but I still give you respect when I see you. If you're not able to maintain that, then stop probing and asking questions about the person's honor. So Salman comes, Abu Darda comes home, and Salman's there waiting for him. Abu Darda's fasting as usual, and so he makes some food and he presents it to Salman. And Salman says to Abu Darda, "Ma ana bi'akil hatta ta'kul." I'm not going to eat until you eat. Break your fast. Break your fast. It's a supererogatory fast. It's a sunnah fast. It's not wajib. Break it. And it shows us, as the scholars explain the hadith, it shows us the permissibility of breaking a sunnah fast if a guest come over to your home or some circumstance come up. Maybe your wife says, oh, it's Monday, and your wife says, well, I thought we were going out for breakfast today. You said we were going for breakfast. To say, well, I'm fasting today, so we got to do that another day. She's like, okay. But you got to think about the hurt that you just caused her, the disappointment that you just caused her. And perhaps you breaking your fast to honor the breakfast that you promised her, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will still reward you for your intention. And you made your wife happy. It's a win-win. Does that make any sense? I know it's after Fajr. You guys are looking at me like I have two heads. Does that make sense? It's still a win-win. Allah's still going to reward you for your intention. You didn't lose anything. And also, kasabta qalbaha. You won the heart of your wife. You honored. There's nothing that women appreciate more about a man than a man who honors his promises. You say, well, we're going here, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. They're going to hold you to that. Honor that. Well, yeah, I promised you that. I'm going to honor that. I'll break my fast and we can go to breakfast. So it's important that, we understand that in this situation, he was doing something that is called majoring in the minor, minoring in the major. You have two issues here. Number one, you have a sunnah fast. And then you have spending quality time with your wife. Which one is wajib? Question. The women answered. They're not even supposed to be here. Spending time, quality time with your wife is wajib. It's an obligation on you as a man. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. And live with your wives bil ma'ruf, in kindness. Kindness, ma'ruf, is a broad term in the issues of fiqh, and it covers a wide range of meanings. Ma'ruf, in ma'ruf is quality time with your wife. We find the Prophet ﷺ spending quality time with his wives. With all of the responsibilities that was on his shoulders, he still made time for his family. There are incidents, hadith, where the Prophet ﷺ was with Sauda, and Aisha had cooked something, had baked something, and Aisha wasn't the greatest cook, right? As a young woman, Sauda was a lot older than she was along the age of the Prophet ﷺ, and Aisha cooked a cake or something sweet, and the Prophet ﷺ was sitting in between the two doors. Sauda's house is here, Aisha's house is here. The Prophet is sitting in between the two doors. The doors are open and they're just communicating with one another. Aisha makes something sweet and she brings it to Sauda and says, here. Sauda says, I'm not going to eat any of that. I'm sorry. I don't want anything that you cooked. And Aisha said, if you're not going to eat it, then I'm going to smash it in your face. And so Sauda refused to eat. Aisha took some in her hand and threw it in the face of Sauda. The Prophet ﷺ get up, he grabbed Aisha and told Sauda to smash it back in her face. And this is their family. This is their family. Quality time. Under all of the pressures that were on him as a leader, as an imam, as a father, as a stepfather, as a warrior, as a prophet, all of the responsibilities, he still found time. Last night we talked about him racing with Aisha. He walked into the masjid one day and the Abyssinians were in the masjid sword fighting, and Aisha wants to watch from her home, and he kneels down and Aisha puts her cheek against the cheek of the Prophet ﷺ, and he waits patiently until she's done. It's quality time. That's wajib. And then you have the sunnah prayer. So essentially, Abu Darda was given precedence to something that is sunnah over something that is wajib. Even if I'll give you on the flip side of that. If a man wants to be intimate with his wife and his wife wants to fast, which one is wajib? Which one is wajib? The intimacy is wajib, which is why the Muslim woman has to ask her husband's permission to fast, the sunnah fast. Because his right to intimacy takes precedence over sunnah prayer. And her right to quality time takes precedence over his desire to fast, a sunnah fast. So when Salman said to him, I'm not going to eat until you eat, he was trying to get him to break this, this rigid code of religiosity. You're fasting every single day. You're making no time for your wife. Here it is, I'm a visitor coming to visit you. You make food for me and tell me to eat, and you sit back. I mean, like in certain cultures, that would be considered aib, right? If I came to your house as a guest and you were fasting and you made me food and I sit there and eat while you're just sitting there fasting, is that not considered embarrassing, unbecoming of a host to a guest? No. So he told him to break his fast, eat. So he ate. Salman stays until the nighttime. And Abu Darda, they pray Isha. Abu Darda gets up to pray Tahajjud. Salman says to Abu Darda, Nam, go to sleep. Go spend time with your wife. Here again. The best time to pray Tahajjud is when? The last third of the night. Why? We're in the classroom. He raised his hand. I'm a teacher. I always honor the person who raises their hand.
That's because Allah comes to the first heaven.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends to the lowest heaven and he says at this last third of the night, هَلْ مِن مُسْتَغْفِرٍ فَأَغْفِرْ لَهُ. Is there anyone up at this time asking for my forgiveness so I can forgive him? هَلْ مِن دَاعٍ. Is there anyone asking me for anything? هَلْ مِن سَائِلٍ. Is there anyone asking me for anything? And meanwhile, during that time, most of us are asleep, sound asleep. Meanwhile, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is descending to the lowest heaven, coming to us in hopes of encouraging us to get up to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at that moment. That's the best time to pray tahajjud. So he tells Abu Darda, go to sleep. Go spend time with your wife. And then Abu Darda gets up after some time. Salman says to him, go back to sleep. It's not time yet. And then he gets up at the last third of the night and Salman says to him, Al-Emaan, now let's pray. فَصَلِّيَا, and they pray together. These are men. But what Abu Darda doesn't realize is that he's being set up. He doesn't realize that them praying together is actually his segue into saying to him what he really wants to say to him. Just looking for the right time. And that's very important with men. If you want to give a man advice, especially about something that is as delicate as the way that he is engaging his family, first of all, there needs to be a rapport. We have to have a rapport. If I don't know you, talking to me about something that is as important and sacred and delicate as the way that I engage my family, you don't have an entry into that. We don't even have a rapport. I don't know you like that. Notice Salman and Abu Darda were brothers based upon a pact, a special pact of brotherhood from the Prophet ﷺ. These weren't two strangers. So when a man walks into an imam's office and the imam and that individual do not have a rapport with one another, the imam has to tread very lightly, because you are speaking, number one, about something that is very delicate and sacred. And number two, you and that individual don't have any previous relationship or engagement. You don't know him. And just because you are the imam, just because you believe you have more knowledge, as there's some Muslims, some delusional individuals believe that because I'm the imam, I'm Muslim, I should be able to give you advice. Yes, in a perfect world. We don't live in a perfect world. Some people have egos. And you have to be careful not to break that. That's not your job as the imam or someone who possesses more knowledge, is to show the person how much knowledge you have and break him in your office. That's not your job. No matter how much no matter how much you feel, how bad you feel about the individual, that's not your job. He's setting him up, waiting for the proper time to say to him what he needs to say to him. He waited this whole entire time, and then he found the right moment. So they prayed together. And then after they finished praying, and this is something that we can use, if there's a brother in the masjid and you really want to say something to him, really want to just give him some advice. Maybe you saw him making wudu incorrectly in the bathroom. Maybe you see him praying incorrectly on the musalla. And you really want to say something to him, to correct him. Find the right time. Perhaps pray next to him. And then after the salat is over, you turn to him, Assalamu alaikum, brother, how you doing? Wa alaikum salam, brother, how you doing? What's your name? My name is so-and-so. MashaAllah, you convert to Islam or you were born Muslim? I'm a convert to Islam. Meanwhile, though, more and more you're asking questions, you're getting the idea of how to give this person advice. How long have you been Muslim? Oh, I've only been Muslim for 2 weeks. Oh, okay, great. So now you know he's a new Shahada. You know that the mistake that he made was just pure, genuine ignorance. He doesn't know any better. Say, has anyone ever taught you how to make wudu? No, I just learned from seeing other brothers in the bathroom performing wudu. Oh, okay. Can I show you something? Is it okay if I show you something? Yeah, sure. Done deal. Not, astaghfirullah, brother, I seen you in the masjid, I seen you in the wudu station, and you didn't even wipe over your elbows, brother. Don't you know the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Waylun lil a'qabi min an-nar." Because that's usually how it goes. Without knowing the person's backstory, without knowing, why the person made the mistake that they made, without knowing anything, without even caring. Because the most important thing to you in that moment is what? Conveying the information to him. I taught him the sunnah. I had to correct him. That's the most important thing to you at that moment. The Prophet ﷺ said, مَا كَانَ الرِّفْقُ فِي شَيْءٍ إِلَّا الزَّانَ وَمَا كَانَ الْعُنْفُ فِي شَيْءٍ إِلَّا الشَّانَ. That rifq, gentleness, is not infused into anything except that it makes it beautiful. Gentleness is not infused into anything except that it makes it beautiful. And harshness is not infused into anything except that it makes it ugly. It makes the situation worse. Try this with your wife. You want to say something to her, try infusing what you are getting ready to say, birrifq, gentleness. Out of all of the people in our lives that is deserving of our gentleness, it is our wives. There is no one that is first in line for your gentleness than your wife. Not just that, but you also are in that same line. As we said last night, learn how to be gentle with yourself. And when you are gentle with you, then it makes it easier for you to be gentle with other people. Some of us are very hard with ourselves. When we make a mistake, we come down hard on ourselves. And as a result of coming down hard on ourselves, we come down hard on other people who make the same mistakes. So perhaps learning how to deal with yourself gently, letting yourself be human, understanding that mistakes, al-khata' warid ala ibni Adam, kullu bani Adam khata'un wa khayra khata'ina tawwabun. All of the children of Adam they all make mistakes. Give yourself some credit for being a human. You make mistakes. So perhaps learning how to be gentle with ourselves will allow us to be gentle with other people. But they prayed together. They finished the prayer. And Salman, he turns to Abu Darda and he says to him these 3 words. Not I love you. He says these 3 statements. He said, إِنَّ لِرَبِّكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقًّا وَإِنَّ لِنَفْسِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقًّا وَإِنَّ لِأَهْلِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقًّا فَأَعْطِي كُلِّ ذِي حَقٍّ حَقَّهُ. He said, indeed, your Lord has a right over you. Meaning you have to give Allah His rights. Your body has a right over you. This fasting all the time and getting up every night and praying every night, you're not letting your body relax. You're pushing your body to the limit. And therefore, eventually you're going to burn yourself out. The Prophet ﷺ, as I mentioned in the khutbah, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Inna hada deen mateen." This religion is very challenging. لن يشاد الدين أحد إلا غلبه. No one seeks to go to the extreme in the religion except they will be overcome by the religion. We've seen people convert to Islam, especially new converts, as well as Muslims who were not practicing Islam and then find their way back to Islam. And they come into Islam with such vigor, such enthusiasm. But you got to find your balance. Because the same way you come in, it will be the same way you go out. You swing like a pendulum. Hard to the right, hard to the left. You have to find your balance in the middle without going to one extreme or to the other. You guys follow me? Our religion is a religion of the middle course. The Sahaba described the Prophet ﷺ's worship at sometimes that he would fast and he would not break his fast consecutively. And then he would not fast for such a long period of time that the Sahaba would say that we didn't think he was going to fast anymore. There was a break. He would stand up at night and pray. And then sometimes he would sleep at night until some of the Sahabas, Aisha said, we didn't think he was going to stay up at night and pray anymore. Got to give yourself a break. Find your middle course. Otherwise, you're going to burn yourself out. He said, "Inna li nafsika alayka haqqa." Your body has a right over you. Why you think that the Prophet ﷺ did things so many different ways? To give us options. You can pray tahajjud, up to 12, 13 rak'ah. Or you can pray 1 rak'ah, witr. As the Prophet ﷺ instructed Abu Hurairah, don't go to sleep until you pray witr. Just witr, 1 rak'ah. You got from 1 to 13. Choose. The Prophet ﷺ used to pray Salatul Duha, 2 to 4 rak'ah. However, the sunnah is to pray 12. But he didn't pray 12. He prayed 2 or 4. So there are options for you to find what is comfortable for you. You create your own blueprint. As one of the scholars of the past, he said, "Man burika lahu fi shay'in falyalzimhu." Whoever finds a particular deed easy for him to do, then let him stick with that. Imam Malik, one of his contemporaries, wrote him a letter telling him to stay away from the people that they were students and, they study and, they should learn their religion to be, great worshipers. Imam Malik was a teacher. He was an imam. And so Imam Malik wrote him a letter back and he said that from amongst the people are those who find it easy for them to fight jihad. From amongst the people are those who find it easy for them to pray a lot of prayers. فُتِحَ لَهُ مِنْ أَبْوَابِ الصَّلَاةِ وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ فُتِحَ لَهُ بَابَ الصِّيَامِ وَإِنَّ مِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ فُتِحَ لَهُ بَابَ الصَّدَقَةِ وإن من الناس من فتح له باب العلم وأنا ممن فتح لي باب العلم وأنا أرضى بما فتح الله لي ولا أظن ما أنا فيه دون ما أنت فيه نحن في الأجر سواء. Imam Malik said, from amongst people are those who Allah has opened the door for them to make a lot of prayer. From amongst the people, those who Allah has opened the door for them to make a lot of fasting. They find fasting very easy. Sometimes we're looking at a person, we're seeing them fast every Mondays and Thursdays, fasting extra days, and we're like, dang, I wish I had the strength to do that. That's what Allah made easy for him. You have to find your niche. He said, from amongst the people those whom Allah has made it easy for them to give sadaqah. There's some people who write checks, who look for fundraisers to go to, look for opportunities to write checks, and alhamdulillah, they find their niche in that. And he said there are some people who Allah has made it easy for them to seek knowledge and teach knowledge. And I am from amongst those who Allah has made it easy for me to seek knowledge and teach knowledge. And I don't think that what I am doing is any less in reward, any less in merit than what you are doing. نَحْنُ فِي الْأَجْرِ سَوَاء. We will both have our reward for what we're doing. You're an ascetic. Khair. That's good for you. You stay at home, you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's great. But don't superimpose that on me. Don't impose that on me. You have your bab, I have my bab, and I'm cool with that. You guys follow me. Find your niche. Find what is easy for you to do. So in ending, Salman, he got his point across without making Abu Darda feel like, he was a failure. Men take their marriages very serious. Some, anyway. And for you to come and invalidate a man and make him feel like he's a failure, you got to understand, as men, we deal with failure a lot different. Some men, especially those of us who played sports growing up, losing was like the worst thing ever, right? I'm a teacher, so sometimes I take my students out for gym and they play soccer. And, I have one kid, man, subhanAllah, losing is like the worst thing in the world, man. We literally have to detox him when we come back inside if he loses. We got to sit him down in the principal's office for a little bit because he lost the game. We have even taken the game away from him. The principal have even told him, you are on knockoff. You cannot play soccer during recess anymore for the next 2 weeks because he takes loss so heavy. And as an older man, I'm looking at myself when I was that age. And yes, young boys, they take losses very heavily. And we count those losses. They stay with us throughout our lives. And unfortunately, for some of us, we begin to identify our worth through the losses. I didn't finish college. I didn't finish high school. I didn't finish this. I didn't finish that. So we start walking around carrying this burden, believing that we are just the ultimate poster child of failure. And so once we get married, we feel like, okay, this is my domain, my territory. This is my wife. These are my children. We take that very seriously. And so if you're going to advise a man about, how he is engaging his family, that has to be done with consideration that, this is his pride. This is his pride. And you don't want to make him feel like he's a failure, but you just want to point him in the right direction. You made a mistake here. Can I show you a better way to do that? I understand what you were trying to achieve, but can I show you a better way to do that? As an older man, as someone who has, experienced some things that maybe you have yet to experience. It's better received when you do it that way, rather than shooting the man down by running off hadith and ayat, and the person walks away feeling like a failure. And we do that oftentimes in the Muslim community. We'll run off ayat and hadith, and and it's just like, you left me no room to walk away with my dignity. You've literally stripped me of my dignity. I literally walk away again feeling like a failure. I can't even get my marriage right. And notice, Salman did not advise Abu Darda in front of his wife. He pulled him to the side. That's the way that advice is supposed to be given. Advice is given in private. Nasiha is the Arabic word for advice that's given in private. Fadiha, just put a fa on it and change the sad to a dad. Fadiha is exposure. That is done in public. You correct me in public, then that is not nasiha. Salman did not advise Abu Darda in front of his wife. He pulled him to the side and he spoke to him one-on-one as a man. And if you want to speak to a man, that's the way that you do it. It's easily received. Not, this side going behind the person's back, talking about the person behind their back. And so now I got to hear from somebody else that you said this about me. This is cowardly. This is not what men do. If you are going to say something, be man enough to say it to the person's face. Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, Rahimallah man ahda ilayya dhunubi. Ahda ilayya akhta'i. May Allah have mercy upon the person who brings to my attention my mistake. He made dua for the person. May Allah have mercy on the individual who brings to me my own mistake. But bring it to me. Don't go tell everybody else and then don't say anything to me about it. That's cowardly. Come to me and say, hey, for one, I respect the person who does that, because that's something that I would do. I'm not going to talk about you behind your back. No one who knows me, no one who I've ever had dealings with can ever say, I said something about you behind your back. If I said something to you, trust me, I said it to you face to face. That doesn't make me a tough guy. That makes me an honorable guy. Because I know that real men respect that. Not that you go and you talk about me behind my back. Oh, I talked to his wife the other day and he's doing this to his wife and and it's like, and then you hear it from somebody else and it's just like, why didn't you just come to me and say it? That's what men do. He said, indeed, your Lord has a right over you. Your body has a right over you. Your wife has a right over you. Give everyone that has a right their right. Give them their haqq. You have to find a balance. Your life is imbalanced. You're investing so much time in this, but you're neglecting that. And that's indicative of young men. That's what young men do, because sometimes as a young man, we have a one-track mind. We see tunnel vision. I just want to do this, but you're not considering everything else. And then when our wives bring that to our attention, they look like they're nagging. No, it's just that women kind of see the whole picture. Men, if you have a good wife, then you should respect the fact that she is constantly talking you off the ledge. You have great ambitions. I want to do this. I'm going into business and I'm doing this. And your wife's like, wait, slow down. Okay. All right, I get it. But what about this? What about this? It's like, oh, you just don't want me to do it. You're hating on me. You don't want me to. It's like, no, I don't. I want you to achieve greatness. Great, got it. But I also want you to consider all of the other things as well. And if you have a good wife, that's exactly what a good wife represents. She is your muse. She is your inspiration. It's just some men, it takes them a long time to come to that realization. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you the woman that you have right now for a reason. You just haven't unwrapped, the gift wrap thing to see the gift that is beneath it. Many of us are still dealing with our wives on the surface. She's just here to cook my food, to take care of my children, to clean my house, and that's it. That's just the surface. She is so much more. If you would just take time out to unwrap the gift that Allah gave you. So many things in this woman. And I mean, to even go through the life of the Prophet ﷺ and all of the gifts, Allah gave him many gifts. We have one. Some of us, Masakeen, we have one. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the Prophet ﷺ many. And you can look in each and every situation how those women contributed. I'll end with this. Very good point. So we were covering the story of Musa with my sixth graders. We're covering the story of Musa, right? And so I said, when you look at the story of Musa alayhi salam from beginning to end, you can see throughout his entire journey that he was always taken care of by a woman. In the beginning, Allah told his mother, when you're afraid for him, throw him in the Nile River, we'll bring him back to you. His mother cared for him. She saved his life. His basket floats all the way down until it arrives at Fir'aun's palace. Who finds him? The guard brings him to Fir'aun, who saves his life again for the second time. Asya saved his life again. She says to Fir'aun, maybe we can take him as a child or we can take him as a servant. Don't kill him. And it was through that Fir'aun spared him. Second time, his life was saved by a woman. Then he kills a man, he flees Egypt, runs to Midian, and then, he notices two women standing off to the side. He goes to the women, he asks them, why are you standing here? They said, we don't want to mingle with the men. Musa takes the animals, goes and gives them water, gives the animals back to the girls, they leave. Musa raises his hand and makes dua. Rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khayrin faqir. Oh my Lord, whatever you have prepared for me, I am in need of it right now. I have no family, I have no food, I have nothing, no shelter, no nothing. And what does the girl do? She goes back and she tells her father, this guy helped us. The father says, go get him. The girl comes back, she invites Musa, saves his life again. Do you see the pattern here? Every situation, every step of his story, he was being guided. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was using women to assist him in that. So one of my genius sixth graders says, well, why weren't there any girl prophets? You always get that, right? Why weren't there any prophets who were women? And my response to them was, the prophets that are men wouldn't be who they were if it wasn't for women. Women didn't need to be prophets. They were the mothers of prophets. That's even greater status than being prophets. You guys follow me? I'm trying to show you how great the woman that you have at home right now, how great she is. If you would just go deeper, unravel the package that Allah gave you. Allah doesn't give us our gifts just handing it to us. The gifts that Allah give us are wrapped. Sometimes in trial, tribulation, you got to go through certain things. And then at the end of that journey, there's your gift. Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, he had to confront his father. That whole conversation, Ya abati, la ta'bud ash-shaytan, Ya abati, inni qad ja'ani min al-ilmi, ma lam ya'tika fattabi'ni. The whole conversation. And then at the end of the conversation, his father says to him, are you turning away from our idols, Ibrahim? If you don't stop, I'm going to stone you. Stay away from me. And then Allah says what? When Ibrahim moved away from his family, وَهَبْنَا لَهُ إِسْحَاقَ. We gave him Ishaq. That was his gift. You had to leave your family because they rejected your message. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you a son, Ishaq. So sometimes our gifts are wrapped. And we got to go through what we got to go through in order to get it. Allah doesn't just hand you His ni'mah like that. Otherwise, we wouldn't appreciate it. As I said last night, we wouldn't appreciate the gifts that God give us if He just gave it to us unwrapped. So He wraps it in trial, tribulation, challenge. He wraps our wives in, you got to sift through some of the stuff that's there. But underneath all of that is a good woman. You just have to see that. And for some men, they don't really realize that until they're old and they have nobody to care for them. And guess who's there? Making your meals, washing you, taking care of you when you can't take care of yourself. The same woman that we treated like crap for so many years. And she's the only one there. Your children don't want to come around you anymore. Some of us are so rigid that the moment our children leave our homes, they ain't never coming back. They come back on their terms. And the only one that is stuck there with you and your attitude, your behavior, your bad manners is the same woman that has been there from day one. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to actualize and realize the jewels that we have in the women that He blessed us with. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us for our shortcomings in how we manage our families and run our families, and allow us to embrace the information that is out there that will help us become better husbands, better fathers, better men. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وجزاكم الله خيرا for your time. Sorry that I took so long. It was only an hour. Only an hour.